On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Katharine, Duchess of Kent, passed away on September 4, 2025, at Kensington Palace, at the age of 92. Her death was natural, a quiet, close to a life spent balancing tradition and independence within Britain's most scrutinized institution, the monarchy. Born Catherine Worsley in 1933, she was a Yorkshire girl who fell in love with music long before she ever became a royal. When she married Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, in 1961 at York Minster, she stepped into centuries of dynastic history. Yet her journey within the royal family was anything but conventional. In 1994, Catherine made headlines as the first senior royal in more than 300 years to convert publicly to Roman Catholicism. At a time when faith and monarchy were tightly bound by law and tradition, her decision spoke to a deeply personal conviction, one that challenged old boundaries while signaling that the Windsors, too, lived in a changing world. Her death reflects the quiet resilience of a woman who often stood apart. Unlike many of her contemporaries, Catherine withdrew from royal life in the 1990s, choosing instead to dedicate herself to teaching music in primary schools. To students, she wasn't a duchess in pearls. She was simply Mrs. Kent, guiding children through piano scales and choir rehearsals. In this, she represented a different kind of royalty, one grounded in service, humility, and art. The immediate response to her passing was one of solemn respect. Though not a headline figure like Queen Elizabeth II or Diana, Princess of Wales, Catherine held a symbolic role. For 3 decades, she was the face of Wimbledon's ladies' singles trophy presentations, and for decades more, a patron of young musicians. Her death marked the end of an era in which quiet duty could exist alongside personal defiance. Catherine became a bridge between the monarchy's mid-20th century traditions and its uncertain 21st century identity. Mother Teresa's death on September 5, 1997 in Calcutta came quietly, the result of a heart attack following years of fragile health. She was 87 years old. Though her passing was natural, it carried profound symbolic weight. She had become the embodiment of service to the poor, a figure whose frailty and endurance reflected both the struggles of the 20th century and the values of compassion that transcended borders. Her death came just days after the tragic passing of Princess Diana, 2 women often linked in their humanitarian missions, though from very different worlds. For many, this timing underscored a sense of global loss, as if the era of selfless service and visible compassion had dimmed. The immediate consequence was an outpouring of grief from every corner of the world. From Vatican bells to candlelit vigils in Calcutta's streets, the mourning was both intimate and universal. Mother Teresa's legacy was not without controversy. Some criticized the conditions of her homes for the dying or questioned her views on suffering, contraception, and poverty. Yet, her death amplified her legend, not diminished it. In life, she was revered. In death, she became mythic, quickly beatified in 2003 and canonized as Saint Teresa of Calcutta in 2016. This rapid path to sainthood revealed not just the Church's recognition of her impact, but also humanity's yearning for figures who embody selflessness in a fractured world. Her passing reflected the challenges of her era. The late 20th century was marked by globalization, widening inequality, and growing skepticism toward institutions. In this climate, Mother Teresa's simple image, sari, sandals, and wrinkled hands clasped in prayer, became a counterweight. She represented an unshakable belief in the power of small acts to dignify human life. But her story also reveals a deeper truth about our relationship with mortality and memory. We do not remember Mother Teresa for her final years of illness or her hospital bed in Calcutta. We remember her bent figure cradling the dying, her calm presence in the chaos of Calcutta's streets. Death, in this sense, stripped away the human frailties and left only the symbol. We immortalize such figures through statues, sainthood, literature, and the continued work of the missionaries of charity. Yet perhaps the truest memorial is the countless lives she touched and the enduring reminder that even in the face of suffering, compassion remains humanity's most powerful legacy. Phyllis Schlafly, one of the most polarizing voices in modern American political history, passed away on September 5, 2016, at the age of 92. Her death came after a battle with cancer, a natural conclusion to a long and combative life that was itself a constant contest of ideas and values. Unlike the sudden or violent departures that often seize public attention, Schlafly's death reflected the slow fading of a figure whose influence had been cemented over decades, making her absence more symbolic than shocking. Schlafly rose to national prominence in the 1970s as the leader of the grassroots movement against the Equal Rights Amendment, ERA. At a time when second-wave feminism was gaining momentum, she stood as its fiercest critic, arguing that the amendment would erode protections for homemakers, blur gender roles, and destabilize the family unit. Her traditionalist stance reflected the cultural battles of her era, where shifting gender dynamics collided with deeply rooted conservative values. By the time of her death, the ERA had still never been fully ratified, a testament to the enduring impact of her campaign. The immediate consequence of her passing was a renewed debate over her legacy. To her supporters, she was a defender of family values, faith, and patriotism. To her critics, she was a barrier to gender equality and a voice that reinforced systemic inequalities. In either case, her influence was undeniable. Schlafly had reshaped the Republican Party by mobilizing conservative women at the grassroots level, and her strategies laid the foundation for the rise of modern right-wing populism. Her death also carried symbolic weight because it occurred in 2016, a year of political upheaval in America. Only months before, she had publicly endorsed Donald Trump, seeing in him the embodiment of the populist, nationalist energy she had long championed. For many observers, her death marked the passing of a torch, from one era of conservative activism to another, more tumultuous one. Schlafly's legacy demonstrates how mortality does not silence ideas. While her body rests, her influence echoes through debates over gender, family, and the role of conservatism in American politics. Humanity's relationship with mortality is paradoxical. Though we all pass, our beliefs, convictions, and struggles can outlast us. Figures like Schlafly are immortalized not through statues or films, but through the political structures and cultural divisions they helped shape. Reminders that power and memory are as enduring as the ideals we leave behind. Sarah Harding, beloved singer and member of the British pop group Girls Aloud, passed away on September 5, 2021, at just 39 years old. Her death, caused by breast cancer, was both tragic and symbolic of the vulnerabilities even celebrities face. Reminders that illness, not fame or success, often dictates the limits of a life. Harding had publicly shared her diagnosis in 2020, speaking candidly about the rapid spread of the disease and the emotional toll it took. By being open about her struggle, she offered fans both a moment of intimacy and a sobering reflection on the fragility of health. Harding's passing occurred in an era when conversations around cancer awareness and women's health were increasingly at the forefront of public dialogue. Her youth made the tragedy more profound, highlighting the reality that such illnesses do not always follow the expectations of age. In a cultural landscape often dominated by glamour and success stories, Her openness about pain and mortality broke through the noise, resonating deeply with fans and the broader public. The immediate consequence of her death was an outpouring of grief across Britain. Former bandmates, fellow entertainers, and admirers celebrated her not only as a performer, but as a vibrant personality whose energy had helped shape the sound of early 2000s pop. Girls Aloud formed through the reality competition Pop Stars, The Rivals. In 2002 had become one of the UK's most successful girl groups, and Harding's voice and presence were integral to that success. Her passing invited nostalgic reflection on an era of music that had defined a generation, amplifying the group's legacy while underscoring the brevity of her own life. Her death also reignited awareness campaigns for cancer research and screenings, reflecting a broader cultural shift toward destigmatizing health conversations. In this way, Harding's departure transcended personal tragedy, becoming a rallying point for collective action and remembrance. In remembering Sarah Harding, we see how death often crystallizes memory. Humanity tends to immortalize such figures not just for their achievements, but for the emotional connections they leave behind. Harding's story illustrates that even brief lives can leave indelible marks, through music, through honesty in the face of struggle, and through the communal grief that transforms loss into legacy. Sérgio Mendes, the masterful Brazilian pianist and global ambassador of Bossa Nova, died on September 5, 2024, in Los Angeles at the age of 83, succumbing to complications from long-term COVID. His passing was natural, yet deeply reflective, a reminder that even innovators who reshape culture remain vulnerable to the era's unseen threats. Mendes rose to prominence in the early 1960s, when a fateful appearance at a Bossa Nova festival at Carnegie Hall introduced his refined rhythms and fluid harmonies to the world. By blending Brazilian samba, jazz, pop, funk, and later even hip-hop, he crafted a sound that spoke across borders. Hits like Mas Que Nada and inventive covers of Beatles and Simon and Garfunkel songs fueled his ascent from Brazil '66 to international stardom. His death came at a moment when concerts in Paris, London, and Barcelona in late 2023 brimmed with sold-out joy, his swan song still echoing in packed venues. This juxtaposition, lively farewell tours overshadowed by the lingering grip of COVID, offered a haunting commentary on our global moment. Illness, once a private battle, had become a historical marker of our times. The reaction was immediate and profound. Tributes flooded in. Herb Alpert calling Mendes "my brother from another country," and fellow Brazilian icons like Milton Nascimento mourning the loss of an ambassador of national music. His world-spanning legacy was thrust into sharp relief. Did his passing amplify his legend? Undeniably. Mendes became more than a musician. He emerged as a symbol of cultural convergence, of how Brazilian vibrancy can leap onto the global stage and thrive. Death sealed what art had earned: immortality. He left behind over 35 albums, a Grammy, an Oscar nomination, and decades of influence that still reverberate in every film, every remix, every stage inspired by his rhythm. Mendes's death reminds us that while pandemics may claim lives, they can also sharpen our appreciation for what remains. We immortalize such figures not just through music history or archives, but through how we let their rhythm continue to pulse through culture. Sérgio Mendes's life and passing underscore how we use art to defy erasure, ensuring that even when voices are lost, their echoes endure. Hugh O'Brien, the actor who captured hearts as the iconic lawman Wyatt Earp in the 1950s television series The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp, passed away on September 5, 2016, at the age of 91. His death was natural, the culmination of a long life that spanned the golden era of Hollywood and the transformation of American television. In a time when Westerns dominated popular culture, O'Brien embodied the archetype of the steadfast, moral hero, and his passing marked the closing of a chapter in television history where idealized figures shaped public imagination. O'Brien's career reflected the values and challenges of mid-20th century America. The 1950s and 60s demanded larger-than-life portrayals of courage, integrity, and justice, qualities that O'Brien's Wyatt Earp exemplified. His death highlighted how these cultural ideals, once central to American storytelling, now reside in memory and nostalgia. Immediately after his passing, fans, colleagues, and the entertainment industry paid tribute to his enduring impact, acknowledging not just his on-screen achievements, but his humanitarian efforts, most notably the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Hobby Program, which has shaped generations of young leaders since 1958. Though his star had dimmed in the public eye by the time of his death, O'Brien's legend persists through reruns, historical retrospectives, and the lives influenced by his mentorship programs. His work bridged entertainment and education, demonstrating that the legacy of a public figure extends beyond fame into lasting social influence. O'Brien's death reinforced the fragility of life while also highlighting the permanence of cultural contribution. Through media, archives, and the continued impact of HOBY, O'Brien is immortalized not just as an actor, but as a symbol of leadership and integrity. His life and passing remind us of humanity's enduring desire to commemorate those who inspire, blending artistic legacy with social purpose. In celebrating Hugh O'Brien, we recognize how mortality intersects with memory, and how figures who once dominated screens can continue to guide values, ideals, and imagination long after they are gone. Giselle Mackenzie, the Canadian-born singer and television star, passed away in 2003 at the age of 76 from natural causes, closing the chapter on a life that had once radiated across North American living rooms. In an era when television was the centerpiece of home entertainment, Mackenzie embodied the post-war ideal of charm, poise, and melodic talent. Her voice graced popular programs like Your Hit Parade and the Jack Benny Program, reflecting the mid-20th century appetite for polished, accessible performers who could effortlessly bridge music and personality. Her death highlighted the transient nature of fame in an age when variety shows dominated cultural life. Unlike the instant viral celebrity of today, Mackenzie's era required steady exposure and versatility. She was a performer shaped by the values of her time: dedication, elegance, and the ability to connect directly with audiences through television's intimate lens. The immediate response to her passing was one of quiet reverence rather than widespread media frenzy, emphasizing how many artists leave enduring impacts even as public attention shifts. Though Mackenzie had retreated from the spotlight in her later years, her death reignited appreciation for her contributions to the golden age of television. Recordings, archived performances, and televised retrospectives preserved her artistry, ensuring that new generations could witness the clarity of her voice and the warmth of her presence. In this way, her legend subtly grew, not through sensational headlines, but through the lasting influence of her craft on performers who followed. Giselle Mackenzie's passing reminds us of humanity's enduring struggle with mortality and memory. While life is finite, art becomes a vessel for immortality. Through recordings, television archives, and the stories told by those who experienced her performances firsthand, Mackenzie lives on, a symbol of a formative era in entertainment history. Her life and death illuminate how we immortalize talent, not merely through fame, but through preservation, appreciation, and the quiet echo of artistry that resonates long after the final note has faded. Suleiman the Magnificent, the 10th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, passed away on September 6, 1566, during the siege of Sigedvar at the age of 72. His death, natural yet occurring amid a military campaign, marked the sudden end of an era defined by expansion, reform, and cultural flourishing. Suleiman had spent decades at the helm of one of the most powerful empires of the 16th century, balancing conquest with sophisticated governance, and his passing on the battlefield epitomized the demands and vulnerabilities of a ruler in an age where sovereignty was inseparable from military prowess. The immediate consequences of his death were profound. To prevent destabilization, the Ottoman court concealed the Sultan's passing for several days, allowing operations and succession plans to continue uninterrupted. Suleiman's heir, Selim II, ascended to the throne, inheriting an empire at its zenith, but also one that now faced the challenges of maintaining vast territories without the guidance of a charismatic and seasoned leader. The empire would gradually shift from aggressive expansion to consolidation, signaling a change in Ottoman strategy and culture that mirrored the transitional nature of power when legendary figures depart. Suleiman's death amplified his legend rather than diminished it. Known as both the lawgiver and the magnificent, he was celebrated not only for military victories, but also for significant legal and administrative reforms that strengthened the empire's internal cohesion. His passing was immortalized in poetry, art, and historical chronicles, framing him as a paragon of leadership whose vision extended beyond the battlefield. In European circles, tales of Suleiman's court and campaigns inspired both fear and fascination, intertwining his memory with the broader narrative of Renaissance diplomacy and global power shifts. Reflecting on Suleiman's life and death illuminates humanity's complex relationship with mortality, power, and memory. Leaders may perish, but their actions, laws, and cultural patronage endure, offering a form of immortality through collective remembrance. Art, literature, and commemoration allow successive generations to grapple with the magnitude of such figures, preserving their influence and ideals long after their mortal presence has faded. Suleiman the Magnificent's legacy is a testament to how mortality transforms into memory and how empires, like stories, are sustained by the figures who shape them.